The chamber pulsed with cold blue light as the holographic edict materialized above the central dais. Dr. Elias Carter clenched his jaw as the symbols resolved into Galactic Common, each glowing character, another nail in the coffin of human medical practice. Around him, the Zarathi delegates floated in their anti-grav thrones, bioluminescent tendrils flickering with disapproval. Their jellyfish, like bodies swayed in the sterile air currents, the very picture of bureaucratic disdain. By unanimous decision of the Intergalactic Medical Board, droned High Overseer Vexel, his voice modulated through a translator disc. All human medical licenses are hereby revoked, effective immediately. A murmur rippled through the assembled species, Krill warriors clicking their mandibles in approval. Velnari scholars nodding sagely. Carter didn't need telepathy to read the room. They'd been waiting for this. On what grounds? Carter's voice cut through the murmurs. He stood, ignoring the way his human frame looked squat and vulnerable, next to the towering Krill enforcers. Vexel's tendrils flared violet. Ethical violations your species has. Tampered with the natural order. A hologram flickered to life above the dais. A human woman, silver, haired but vibrant, smiling as she held up a signed document. Carter recognized her immediately. Maria Gonzalez, first volunteer, first success. This, Vexel spat, is an abomination. The footage played, Maria lying peacefully on a med bed, surrounded by her grandchildren. Her voice clear as she said, "I've had enough, let me go." The doctors honored her wish. The life signs flatlined. The family wept. Then 3 days later, the cellular triggers activated. Maria sat up, gasping, decades younger. By choice, the chamber erupted. A Velnari elder slammed his bony fist on the armrest of his hover throne. "You made death optional." Carter crossed his arms. "We made it fair." High Overseer Vexel's bioluminescence darkened to an angry crimson. No species should wield such power. The Federation has survived for millennia by accepting the natural cycle. What you've created, this regeneration, it will destabilize civilizations. A Krill officer clattered forward, his chitinous armor scraping against the polished floor. "Life must be earned through struggle. Your soft species cheats." Carter didn't flinch. "Tell me, Overseer, how many Zarathi Council members have naturally lived past 500 years? The chamber went silent. Vexel's tendrils stiffened. "That is classified." Commander Lena Vasquez, leaning against the back wall in her black ex-military fatigues, snorted. "Convenient." The hologram shifted to display the official edict. Thousands of human doctors, researchers, and medtechs stripped of their credentials. Carter's name flashed at the top. "You have one standard cycle to cease all human medical operations," Vexel announced. "Krill enforcement teams will confiscate all regeneration tech." Dr. Priya Mehta, who'd been quietly observing from the human delegation, finally spoke. Her voice was calm, but her knuckles whitened around her data pad, and when the next plague hits a frontier world, when a freighter crew gets caught in a radiation storm, you'll let them die because our help is suddenly unethical? A Velnari scholar floated forward, his long robes brushing the floor. "Some prices are too high for progress. Your species plays with forces you don't understand." Vasquez pushed off the wall, her boots echoing in the sudden quiet. "We understand just fine. You're scared because we changed the rules." She nodded to Carter. "Let's go. We've got work to do." As they exited the chamber, the whispers followed them, some fearful, some furious. Carter caught snippets in a dozen languages, but the meaning was universal. The humans had done the unthinkable. They'd cured death, and the galaxy would never be the same. The USN Asclepius hung in orbit like a wounded beast, its usual glow dimmed under the watchful cannons of Krill patrol ships. The massive medical vessel, once a beacon of hope across 3 systems, now had its docking ports sealed by shimmering red quarantine fields. Inside, Dr. Priya Mehta watched through reinforced glass as Krill enforcers in black carapace armor marched through the corridors. their segmented legs clicking against the deck plating. "They're confiscating everything," muttered a nurse beside her, gripping a trauma kit like it might be ripped from her hands next. "Even the pediatric units." Priya didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the Krill officer leading the raid. Commander Vex, his nameplate read. He stopped before a row of regeneration pods, their human patients floating in golden suspension fluid. One pod held a Terran child, barely 8 years old, her body halfway through rebuilding after a shuttle collision. Vex's mandibles twitched. "This technology is now property of the Intergalactic Medical Board." His voice buzzed with the harsh inflection of his species. "You can't just—" A human medic started, stepping forward. Vex backhanded him without looking. The medic crumpled, blood spraying across the sterile white floor. "Your licenses are revoked. Your research is forfeit. Your methods are an abomination." He turned to his squad. "Destroy the pods." Priya moved before she could think, throwing herself between the Krill and the child's pod. "This girl isn't technology. She is a patient." Vex's compound eyes reflected her face 100 times over. "Death is the universe's balance. Your kind cheats." He raised a serrated forelimb. A new voice cut through the tension. "And what of the Zorathi?" Priya turned to see Elder Nithis of the Velnari gliding into the med. Bay, his long robes brushing the floor. His wrinkled face, older than some civilizations, was unreadable. Vex hesitated. "Elder, this does not concern your people." Nithis ignored him, addressing Priya instead. "Explain your ethics, human. Why would you unravel the sacred transition all beings must face?" Priya wiped blood from her split lip. "We didn't erase death, Elder. We gave it choice. That child's parents signed the consent forms. She'll wake up with no memory of pain. Is that wrong?" Across the room, a Krill soldier smashed a pod. Glass shattered. Alarms wailed. The patient inside, an elderly Martian colonist, collapsed onto the deck, his half-regenerated lungs gasping. Nithis flinched. Commander Vex kicked the dying man aside. "Weakness deserves no mercy." Priya lunged for the emergency kit, but 2 Krill pinned her arms. She thrashed as Vex approached the child's pod, his claws extending. Then the Asclepius's comm system crackled to life. "Attention, Krill forces." Commander Lena Vasquez's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "You have 10 seconds to stand down." Vex snorted. "Or what? Your pathetic fleet is." The view screen flickered. The patrol ships outside moved, their formations breaking as new signatures blinked into existence. Dozens of them. Human vessels unmarked, their hulls scarred from battles the board had never recorded. Vasquez continued. "You think medicine is our only innovation?" A targeting lock alarm blared across the Krill ships. "Try our painkillers." The first missile hit, not an explosive. A canister that burst against the lead patrol ship's hull, releasing a cloud of silver nanites. They slithered into the engines. The ship shuddered, then its thrusters flared back to life, redirected by human code. Inside the med bay, Vex's comlink erupted with panicked clicks. He turned just as Priya drove a stolen bone, saw into his thorax. Green ichor sprayed. The Krill shrieked, stumbling back. Priya didn't let go. "You want to talk about cheating?" She twisted the blade. "We wrote the book." Nithis watched, his ancient eyes wide, as the humans turned the tide. Nurses became soldiers. Medical tools became weapons, and the Asclepius itself seemed to breathe as its systems rebooted, nanites knitting damaged circuits back together. On the floor, the Martian colonist coughed, then inhaled deeply. His regeneration pod might be destroyed, but the nanites in his blood were still working, still healing. Vex collapsed, his life leaking through Priya's fingers. His last words were a whisper. "You'll burn for this." Priya stood, wiping her hands on her ruined scrubs. She met Nithis's gaze. "Tell your board something for me." Outside, another Krill ship went dark, its systems peacefully disabled. "We don't follow your rules anymore." The elder said nothing. But as he turned to leave, Priya saw it, the slightest tremble in his hands. The neon glow of the bar's signage pulsed like a dying star, casting shifting hues across Commander Lena Vasquez's scarred face. She drummed her fingers against the dented metal table, the vibrations making the half-empty glass of synth whiskey tremble. Around them, the chatter of a dozen species filled the smoky air, the perfect cover for what came next. Dr. Elias Carter slid into the seat opposite her. His lab coat swapped for a nondescript spacer's jacket. His fingers twitched near his wristpad, old habits from years of tapping at medical readouts. "They're calling it the greatest crime against nature since the Xanthus black hole experiments," he muttered, keeping his voice low. Vasquez snorted, tossing back the rest of her drink. "Funny, last week they were begging for our trauma stabilizers after the Battle of Cygnus the Sith." A server droid hovered nearby, its spherical body bobbing expectantly. Carter waved it off. The moment it drifted away, he leaned in. "They didn't ban us because we're dangerous. Lena, they banned us because we're better." His grin was sharp, the kind that had preceded every breakthrough that sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Vasquez's eyes flicked to the exits, then back. "Spill it, Doc. What'd you find?" Carter tapped his wristpad. A hologram flickered to life between them, displaying encrypted medical logs. The Zarathi elite, their so-called natural lifespan. The data reconfigured, showing biometric scans. Every single high-ranking official on the medical board has cellular regeneration markers, human markers. Vasquez's grip tightened around her empty glass. "They've been using our tech, not just refining it, these readings. They're from a version we shelved, too unstable for human biology, but for a species with redundant neural clusters." Carter's voice dropped to a whisper. "They've been cheating death for centuries while preaching about the sanctity of the natural order." A crash echoed from the bar. Vasquez didn't flinch, but her hand drifted to the pulse pistol at her hip. A group of Krill soldiers had entered, their chittering laughter grating against the ambient music. One of them shoved a Velnari scholar aside, mandibles clicking in amusement as the elderly alien stumbled. "Keep talking," Vasquez said, her gaze locked on the Krill. Carter minimized the hologram. "The board's been siphoning our research through shell corporations, every ethical violation they accused us of. They've committed 10 times over, and the Krill." He nodded toward the soldiers, now harassing a cowering server. "They're not just enforcers, they're the board's cleanup crew. Anyone who gets too close to the truth disappears." Vasquez's jaw clenched. "So we broadcast the truth, hit them where it hurts. Not that simple." Carter pulled up another file, a security feed from the Asclepius. Krill troops dragging a human medic from an operating theater mid-surgery. "They've already locked down the major comm hubs. Anything we send gets flagged, traced, and erased." A shadow fell over their table. Vasquez didn't look up. "Humans," hissed a voice. The Krill soldier loomed over them, his compound eyes reflecting the neon lights. "This sector is under medical board quarantine. Your presence is suspicious." Carter forced a smile. "Just sharing a drink, officer." "No laws against that." The Krill's antennae twitched. One clawed hand snatched Carter's wristpad. "This is unauthorized medical hardware, confiscated under board mandate." Vasquez finally looked up, her expression ice. "Give it back." The soldier's mandibles spread in something like a grin. "Or what, Sofkin? You'll heal me to death?" The bar's patrons had gone quiet. Even the music seemed to hush. Vasquez moved faster than the Krill could react. Her fist connected with the joint between his thorax and abdomen. A weak point Carter had once drunkenly explained over a late-night dissection. The soldier screeched, doubling over. She wrenched the wristpad free, then drove her knee into his faceplate. Chitin cracked. Chaos erupted. The other Krill surged forward, weapons humming to life. Carter grabbed Vasquez's arm. Time to go. They bolted for the service exit, Vasquez firing a wild shot behind them that shattered a glowing liquor display. Blue flames erupted, casting eerie shadows as they shoved through the kitchen. A cook, a hulking Brintar with 4 arms, glared but didn't stop them. The alley outside reeked of engine coolant and alien spices. Vasquez didn't slow until they'd rounded 3 corners, ducking into the maintenance hatch of a docked freighter. Carter wheezed, bracing against the wall. You broke his face. He'll live. Vasquez checked the wrist pad, still intact. Unlike us if we don't move. That was a scout party. The main force won't be far behind. Carter exhaled sharply. So what now? We can't outrun the entire Krill fleet. Vasquez scrolled through the stolen data, stopping at a frequency log. We don't run, we hit back. She tapped a series of coordinates. The Judicator's archives. If we can access their mainframe, we can broadcast the truth to every ship in the sector. Carter stared at her. That is suicide. Only if we die, she smirked. And thanks to you, Doc. That is optional. Somewhere in the distance, alarms began to wail. The IMBY Judicator's archives hummed with forbidden knowledge. Commander Lena Vasquez moved through the darkened data vaults like a ghost, her fingers dancing across stolen access codes. The Zarathi had built their systems to be impenetrable to anyone but a human who'd reverse, engineered their encryption during 3 sleepless nights. Dr. Priameta's voice crackled in her earpiece. Lina, you've got 6 minutes before the next patrol. The Krill don't take breaks. Vasquez didn't answer. Her eyes locked onto the glowing holofiles floating before her. Found it, she whispered. The files unfolded like poisoned flowers, medical records. Thousands of them, Zarathi elders, supposedly dead and honored in public ceremonies, alive and well in hidden orbital sanctuaries. One after another, their lifespans stretched centuries beyond their species' natural limit. Son of a bitch, Vasquez breathed. A chittering noise echoed down the corridor. Krill enforcers. She slapped a transmitter onto the central node and ducked behind a server bank as 3 insectoid warriors clattered past, their compound eyes scanning the darkness. The moment they rounded the corner, she was moving again. Her fingers flew over the transmitter. Meta, patch me into the public bands. Every frequency, every channel. You're not just stealing data, Meta realized. You're broadcasting it. Vasquez bared her teeth. They wanted to hide. Let's see them try. The files exploded across the galaxy. On 100 worlds, screens flickered to life. Velnari scholars gasped as they saw the truth. Zarathi High Mediator Sixis, supposedly deceased for Fey years, sipping rejuvenation fluids in a luxury med. Pod Krill soldiers paused mid-march as their commander's lies unraveled before them. A Velnari elder's voice rang out first, trembling with betrayal. You monsters. You let us mourn our dead while you cheated the cycle. The Zarathi response was immediate. This is human fabrication. High Mediator Shix's image flickered onto emergency broadcasts, his bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with rage. The Federation must not. A new voice cut him off. Dr. Elias Carter, standing in the Asclepius main lab, holding up a vial of shimmering silver fluid. Tell me, Shixis, he said softly. Does this look familiar? The vial was identical to those in the archived footage. The galaxy held its breath, then chaos erupted. Velnari ships broke formation with the medical board's fleet, their ancient honor violated. Krill warriors turned on each other, some still loyal to their commanders, others howling about deception. Vasquez sprinted for the Judicator's hangar as alarms wailed through the ship. She barely made it to her stolen shuttle before the first explosions rocked the vessel. The Zarathi were scuttling their own evidence. Meta's voice was tight with worry. Lena, the Krill main fleet is mobilizing. They're not backing down. They're doubling down. Vasquez punched the thrusters, her shuttle screaming clear of the disintegrating Judicator. Of course they are, she muttered. Insects hate admitting they're wrong. On the view screen, a new transmission overrode all others. The Krill High Swarm commander, his mandibles dripping with fury. Human interference will be purged. All vessels converge on the USN Asclepius. Destroy their blasphemous technology. Vasquez switched channels to Carter's private frequency. Elias, they're coming for you. She could hear his grin. Let them. Somewhere in the dark between stars, the first human-made shields flared to life around the Asclepius, their regenerative matrices humming with untested potential. Somewhere else, a Velnari war fleet changed course, not toward the human ship, but between it and the oncoming Krill. And everywhere, a single truth spread like fire. The game had changed. The Asclepius shuddered as the first plasma volley slammed into its shields. Alarms blared through the corridors, red emergency lights painting the med. Bay walls crimson. Dr. Elias Carter barely glanced up from his workstation, fingers flying over the holographic interface, as he adjusted the molecular stabilizers on his latest serum. Across the room, Commander Lena Vasquez stood with her boots magnetized to the deck, watching the tactical display with narrowed eyes. 23 Krill warships, she muttered. And here I thought the medical board didn't believe in overkill. A junior medic stumbled as another impact rocked the ship. Carter reached out to steady him without looking. Relax, kid. These bulkheads have survived worse. He tapped his earpiece. Engineering, how is our skin holding up? Shields at Faye, came the crackling reply. But their plasma cannons are tuning to our frequency. Next volley's gonna hurt. Vasquez smirked. Tell me you've got that surprise ready, Carter. The doctor held up a syringe filled with swirling silver liquid. Nanite adaptive matrix. Just needs the final activation sequence. His fingers danced across the keyboard. There, now we see if theory holds up against live fire. Outside the viewports, the Krill fleet moved into attack formation. Their angular black ships gleamed like obsidian daggers against the stars. The lead vessel, marked with the crimson sigil of the medical board's enforcers, opened a hailing frequency. Human vessel Asclepius, buzzed the insectoid commander. Surrender your banned medical technologies and submit to boarding. This is your final warning. Vasquez snorted. Let me handle this. She activated the comm. Krill Command, this is Commander Vasquez of the United Earth Systems Navy. You really want to test human medical ingenuity? She nodded to Carter. Do it. Carter slammed his palm onto the console. Across the Asclepius, hidden emitters flared to life. A shimmering blue wave pulsed outward from the hull, washing over the Krill fleet. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the lead Krill ship fired. The plasma bolt streaked toward the Asclepius and splashed harmlessly against suddenly glowing shields. Where the energy struck, the defensive barrier rippled like liquid metal, then solidified stronger than before, shield integrity increasing. The engineering officer's voice cracked with disbelief. They hit us, and we got tougher. Carter grinned. Regenerative nanotech. We don't just fix people, we fix ships. The Krill commander shrieked something untranslatable. The entire fleet opened fire at once. Plasma bolts, ion beams, and kinetic rounds hammered the Asclepius. And with each impact, the ship's defenses adapted. Shield matrices reconfigured mid-impact. Hull breaches sealed themselves with liquid metal foam. Even the weapons systems began recalibrating to counter the Krill's attack patterns. Vasquez watched the display with growing satisfaction. They're panicking. Look at their formation. The Krill ships were breaking ranks, their precise military coordination crumbling into chaos. Some vessels hung back, their commanders clearly reassessing. Others pressed the attack with reckless fury, wasting ammunition on the ever-strengthening human ship. Medical board's gonna need new enforcers after this, Vasquez muttered. Then she spotted movement on the scanner. Carter. Incoming boarding pods. The doctor didn't look up from his monitors. Already handled. Check the ventral airlock cameras. The feed showed a dozen Krill warriors bursting into the Asclepius's lower decks, only to be met not by armed marines, but by swirling clouds of medical nanites. The tiny machines engulfed the insectoids, not attacking, but repairing. Battle-scarred chitin smoothed over. Old injuries from previous wars vanished. Several Krill dropped their weapons in shock as chronic pains they'd lived with for years suddenly disappeared. One warrior stared at his newly regenerated forearm, mandibles quivering. What is this trickery? Dr. Priya Mehta stepped into view, her white coat pristine amid the chaos. No trick, just medicine. She held out a scanner. Your hive queen's been keeping you in constant pain to enhance aggression, hasn't she? We fixed that. The krill looked at each other, their antennae twitching in confusion. Two actually sat down on the deck, their weapons clattering to the floor. Back in the med, Bay Carter monitored the boarding party's vital signs. Heart rates dropping, adrenaline levels normalizing. They're standing down. Vasquez nodded. Good. Now let's give the rest of them something to think about. She opened a fleet. Wide channel. Attention krill forces. You've seen what our medical tech can do. We can heal your wounds or keep healing our ship while you waste ammunition. Your choice. Silence stretched across the battlefield. Then, one by one, the krill ships powered down their weapons. All except the lead vessel, which suddenly accelerated toward the Asclepius. Suicide run! Someone shouted. Carter's hands flew over the controls. Not today. He activated a new program. The Asclepius's forward emitters pulsed, and a beam of golden light struck the charging krill ship. Instantly, its engines shut down. Life support remained active, but all weapons and propulsion systems went dormant. Vasquez raised an eyebrow. Medical stasis beam, temporary full system shutdown. Carter adjusted his glasses, equivalent of putting the whole ship to sleep for its own good. The remaining krill vessels drifted motionless. Across their communication channels, arguments erupted in their clicking native tongue. Then, slowly, their shields deactivated. Vasquez let out a long breath. Well, Doc, looks like you just won a battle without firing a shot. Carter stared at the syringe still in his hand. No, we just proved medicine is more powerful than weapons. He looked up at the stars visible through the viewport. Now, let's see if the rest of the galaxy gets the message. The krill warship's plasma cannons glowed white, hot as they charged for another volley. Commander Vasquez gripped the armrests of her command chair, watching the tactical display flicker with damage reports. The Asclepius shuddered under the barrage, but the regenerative nanotech woven into its hull pulsed like living veins, sealing breaches faster than the krill could inflict them. Shields at Fay and climbing, reported a young ensign, disbelief coloring his voice. They're healing, ma'am. Vasquez allowed herself a grim smile. Tell Carter his toys work. Across the med bay, Dr. Elias Carter monitored the ship's vital signs through a holographic display, his fingers dancing over the controls. Beside him, Dr. Priya Mehta adjusted the flow of nanites into the ship's circulatory system. We're stabilizing, she said, though her knuckles were white around the injector. But if they hit us with another concentrated burst, they won't. Carter didn't look up. Krill tactics are predictable. They'll try to flank us now that head-on attacks aren't working. As if on cue, the comms crackled. Incoming transmission from the Krill command ship, the ensign announced. Vasquez nodded, put it through. The holographic screen flickered to life, revealing the chitinous face of Krill High Commander Vex. His multifaceted eyes gleamed with cold fury. Surrender your vessel and submit to boarding. Humans, your defiance is... Save it. Vasquez interrupted. We both know you're not here to enforce a medical ban. You're here because your bosses are scared. Vex's mandibles twitched. You violate the natural order. Life is not a toy. Funny, Carter muttered. Just loud enough for the comms to pick up. Didn't see you complaining when the Zarathi were hoarding our tech for themselves. The Krill commander's exoskeleton darkened, a telltale sign of rage. Before he could respond, an alarm blared on the Asclepius bridge. Commander! The ensign shouted. We've got a krill boarding pod latched onto Deck 7. Vasquez was already moving. Seal the section, Carter, with me. Deck 7 was a war zone. The krill boarding party had breached the outer corridors, their plasma rifles carving through bulkheads. Human security teams returned fire. But the insectoids advanced relentlessly, their armored carapaces deflecting small arms fire. Then, a gut-wrenching scream. One of the Krill soldiers collapsed, his abdomen torn open by friendly fire, a misfired plasma round from his own squad. His comrades didn't hesitate. They raised their weapons and executed him on the spot, hissing about weakness. Carter saw it happen, saw the wounded Krill twitching on the deck, his life pooling beneath him. Without thinking, he lunged forward, ignoring Vasquez's shout. "What the hell are you doing?" she demanded. "My job," he snapped back. The remaining Krill turned their weapons on Carter as he knelt beside their fallen comrade. The lead soldier's rifle whined as it charged. "Step away. Human, the defective must be purged." Carter didn't flinch. He pressed a regeneration injector to the dying Krill's thorax. Not today. The nanites flooded the soldier's system. His shattered carapace knit itself back together, the hemorrhaging organs sealing in seconds. The Krill gasped, a sound no human had ever heard from his species. As life flooded back into his limbs, his squad mates froze, their hive mind link, usually so absolute, fractured under the weight of what they'd just witnessed. One lowered his rifle. "You saved him." "Of course we did," Carter said, standing slowly. "That's what doctors do." The lead Krill snarled, raising his weapon again. "This is heresy," but the others hesitated. The revived soldier staggered to his feet, clutching his healed abdomen. He looked at Carter, then at his own squad leader. "They could have let me die." Vasquez saw the moment the tide turned. She stepped forward, her sidearm still holstered. "Your leaders lied to you. The Zarathi have been using our tech for centuries. They just didn't want you to have it." The Krill soldiers exchanged glances. The hive, mind was breaking. Then the ship-wide comms crackled. "All hands, brace for impact." The Judicator had arrived. The Zarathi enforcement vessel slid into view, its sleek hull bristling with interdiction arrays. A holographic projection filled the Asclepius bridge, the board's high arbiter, her bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with fury. "This ends now. Surrender the human vessel or be destroyed." Vasquez looked at Carter, then at the conflicted Krill boarding party. She tapped her comm. "Asclepius to all decks. Prepare for emergency jump." "You can't outrun them," the revived Krill soldier said quietly. Carter grinned. "Who said anything about running?" The Asclepius engines roared to life, not for escape, but for a direct course toward the Judicator. The Zarathi ship's shields flared as the human vessel closed the distance. Vasquez's voice was calm. "Carter, you got that little surprise ready?" He held up a data chip, broadcasting on all frequencies in 3, 2, 1. The galaxy's screens lit up with stolen files. Zarathi elders, alive for millennia, their lifespans extended by the very technology they'd banned. The High Arbiter's tendrils went dark. No. The Krill boarding party's weapons clattered to the deck, and in that moment, the war was already over. The chamber of the Intergalactic Medical Board had never been so full. Representatives from every species crowded the floating platforms, their murmurs creating a storm of sound. The Zarathi elders hovered in their anti-grav thrones, bioluminescent tendrils flickering with agitation. Krill soldiers stood rigid at the exits, their compound eyes scanning for threats, but their weapons remained lowered. The hive mind was fractured. The truth had seen to that. Dr. Elias Carter stepped forward, the syringe glinting in his hand. The crowd fell silent. Even the Velnari scholars, their ancient faces lined with disapproval, leaned in. "You revoked our licenses," Carter said, his voice calm but carrying. "You called us dangerous, unethical, but we were never the ones lying." A Zarathi elder pulsed with indigo light. "You disrupt the balance of life itself." Balance. Commander Lena Vasquez cut in, stepping up beside Carter. Her scarred face twisted into a smirk. "You mean the balance where you get to live forever, while everyone else dies?" She tapped her wristpad, and the holographic archives of the Judicator flared to life above them. Zarathi records, dates stretching back millennia. "You've been cheating death long before we showed up." The chamber erupted. A Krill soldier, one of the ones saved by human medics after his own kind left him to die, slammed his fist against the wall. They healed me, he snarled, mandibles clicking, while our commanders called me weak. Dr. Priya Mehta moved to the center, her hands raised. This was never about ethics, it was about control. She turned to the Velnari, their long fingers steepled in thought. You feared what would happen if death wasn't universal, but fear isn't a reason to deny choice. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Carter held up the syringe, the liquid inside catching the light. This is the future. Not forced immortality. Not forced mortality. Choice. He extended it toward the nearest Zarathi elder. Take it or don't. That's the point. The elder recoiled, tendrils flaring crimson. You expect us to— I expect nothing, Carter interrupted. That's what you don't understand. Humanity doesn't force our solutions on others, we offer. You decide. Silence then. From the back of the chamber, a Velnari scholar stepped forward. Their voice was quiet but firm. I will take it, gasps. The Zarathi elders pulsed with outrage, but the scholar ignored them. I have lived 800 years, they said, and I am tired. If I may choose when to rest, that is not disruption, that is mercy. Carter handed them the syringe. The scholar injected it without hesitation. The chamber held its breath. Nothing happened. Then the scholar smiled. The weight is gone, they whispered. The fear. They looked at Carter. You didn't cure death, you cured the dread of it. The Krill soldier who had spoken earlier shoved past his commanders. Give me one, he demanded. Vasquez grinned. Already loaded a batch on the Asclepius. Welcome to the new era. The Zarathi elders tried to retreat, their thrones humming as they activated their private jump drives. But nothing happened. Vasquez tapped her wrist pad again. Yeah, we fixed those too. No more running. The crowd surged forward, voices rising in a dozen languages, demanding answers, demanding the serum. Carter let out a breath, watching as the first cracks in the galaxy's oldest hierarchy spread. Dr. Mehta leaned close. They'll call this a rebellion. Carter shrugged. Let them. We're not overthrowing anything. We're just giving people a choice they should have always had. Outside the chamber windows, the stars burned cold and distant. But for the first time in history, they didn't feel so far away. Humanity didn't cure death. We just made it optional.